Well, LCS is starting in just about a week or so, but there's some big news that is dropping today. We're recording it the day before for anything that seems out of sorts. But I'm joined right now by Phil. Now, a lot of people see your name and think Phil Aram because Aram is a big thing in League. How do you pronounce your
Yep.
last name, Phil?
To all of my league playing friends and colleagues, ARM is incredibly commonly thrown around. So I do not have any qualms about it. It is ARM, like
Aram.
air,
Okay.
um, yeah,
Well, just be ready
not the
for
easiest
everybody
pronunciation.
to think that your last name is Aram. Anyway, uh,
I accept it.
who
A great
has
mode.
taken a role now as the new executive director, I believe is the title, yes, of the Players
Yes,
Association.
correct.
The North American LCS Players Association is what it was previously called. The last time I heard about it, is North America still in the title?
It is still in the title. We've had some talks about rebrands and things like that, but no official plans to shift that after the LCS has become just the LCS and
Yes. Very,
things like that.
very good. Well, okay. First off, congratulations on the new gig. A lot to dive into because a lot of people have a lot of opinions about the Players Association. And also, while I know you from your time at Evil Geniuses, others in the league space may not. So, why don't you go ahead and give a little breakdown about your career in esports so that folks who are curious about your background can get some context?
Yeah, of course. I started in esports over a decade ago, writing about early esports and gaming stuff when I was in college. At the time, I was in business school and going on and work in politics. But when I graduated, started working in political circles around Washington State and organizing. I maintained my connections with the esports space and with all my friends and colleagues who had stuck with it, whether they were paid or unpaid at the time, especially back in 2010, 11, 12. And in 2014, I'd been working in politics for a few years post college and saw the industry really exploding in a way, like a lot of folks did. Saw Twitch really taking over, and I could see the pathway for this being a real career and a real opportunity. So I reached out to some contacts in the space who I knew and had good relationships with, and said, "Hey, if you're hiring and building and actually have paid opportunities, I'd be really interested in helping to be a part of building this future for esports." And ended up getting a really good opportunity to come and work for Good Game Agency, which was at the time just in process of being acquired by Twitch, and they had ownership of both Evil Geniuses and Alliance, and also had some work where they were basically serving as like a full suite agency, helping other teams build out sponsorships and things. I got harvested off to Mouse Sports from them, and or farmed out to Mouse Sports for them to help run a team. That team kind of didn't work out, and I ended up coming into EG and helping their Dota team at the International 2015, which was the one that North America won, EG won, and I transitioned that basically at the same time. Twitch was looking to get out of owning esports team business, and they were looking to sell Evil Geniuses, and we had this group of players who were all incredibly important at the time, especially in esports at that time, being this largest prize pool winning ever team from North America, like really kind of a golden goose for a lot of people, especially Twitch trying to look to sell. And our players had views that they wanted to make sure that they could guide their own future, and so I became the principal negotiator to help negotiate the divestment of Evil Geniuses away from Twitch and back to those players and to be in their ownership hands. Uh, Once we successfully did that, then they were still players and competing and playing, and so I spent a great deal of my time helping to run the operation and build Evil Geniuses, eventually find investment over the course of a couple of years. And then through that investment, I was the lead in helping build our entry into the LCS as well as into CSGO, or re-entry into CSGO, I should say, and LCS. And yeah, working on league level agreements, helping put together things like the Louvre agreement and other big overarching fundamental kind of ecosystem deals there. And eventually I decided that I was kind of done with my experience in the team space and had done all the things I really wanted to do there and was looking for a new adventure. Left the team space and started looking at other opportunities in esports or going back to politics. This opportunity got presented to me by a friend and colleague, and I hadn't really even considered it originally as an option, and it just illuminated immediately as something that was the perfect kind of synergy of my. I hate the word synergy, so that is terrible, and I regret everyone who heard that
The
word just now.
combination, the
But
perfect combination.
that's the one. But yeah, I of my political and like social justice and work there uh, along with my love of esports and gaming. So being able to kind of do both was something that is a real, I'm really fortunate to have that opportunity, and I'm really excited. And we had a lot of conversations about getting involved in it that I'm sure we'll get into, but it's something that just feels right for me, and I'm excited to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, interest in esports and politics. You have definitely found your role with the Players Association. The other thing that's very notable in that story is that you in 2015 were able to help a group of North American players succeed on the international stage. And so I'm curious, does that mean that this year at Worlds we should expect North America to win on the international stage?
Well, in fairness, in my time as a team operator in the LCS, we did not lift any banners or go to Worlds. But I think that I have a great deal of passion for how do we make North America great at esports. When I was at EG, I spent so much of my time trying to build North American rosters or rosters based in North America, even if they were, of international configurations, and really trying to figure out how far we could push it, whether it was winning championships at EG or in Dota or in Call of Duty or CS:GO, we won titles and other things. Building an NA is something I care a lot about, and I think a lot about the ecosystem side. How do we fix problems in development and bringing like new talent in and increase the quality of play, especially for PC gamers in a region that is typically smaller in terms of player base than the other competitive regions for PC games around the world. So I'm really passionate about that, and I think the LCS is like the perfect project for that. It had so much glory, and I think it's become maligned, and I think we have a great opportunity as the PA to work with Riot and with team owners to really like build and improve on the ecosystem in a way that can give us a fighting chance at Worlds.
So I
And
know
then I
that
get 10 horses in the race instead of one.
I know that you are not the only individual who's being announced as being taking part in the new Players Association on the leadership level. So what are the other changes and names that people should understand are going to be part of this?
Yeah, so I think Darshan as president and Lorlo as one of the vice presidents are both names that I think have been already discussed previously and
I don't know if
known.
people knew about
Corj-
Lorlo, but
okay,
yeah,
I wasn't sure. I think he was voted in a previous vote to the one that we're kind of announcing all
possibly.
the
Yeah.
results of today. But Lorlo is coming on as one of our vice presidents, and CoreJJ is one of the other vice presidents on the executive committee. They're going to be the three key players in our leadership group to start. We're still working on building out player reps for each team, which we're choosing not to announce now because we just don't have one for every single team yet. We're trying to make sure we get a good one over getting one today. So, but we're building that infrastructure right now. Those three are like our core leaders, and I think are going to be hugely instrumental for any successes that we have. I think one of our big tenets in this is doing more to organize the players at a granular level, make sure that they understand their rights, make sure they understand the issues, and have the ability to work through and provide feedback quickly in a way that I think the PA has certainly struggled with at times in the past, to be able to get information to and from its player base and get that out to Riot or to teams or to the media or whatever else is necessary to communicate our priorities. So that's the start, is the player leadership. I think they're going to be huge and instrumental. And then we brought in an entire new board as well of people who we did, I think, an interesting hiring process. I think Darshan had a real philosophy around trying to build the right team, not the team right now. He took his time, and I think there was some pushback around responsiveness in certain issues, whether it be the import rule or other things in the past months, where he said, look, I'm not ready to hire all these people yet. I'm not ready. We haven't picked the right folks. And I would rather, take that time and get it right than rush to get something done today that I'll regret soon. And I think that was a real ethos that he took and that we took in the process. Even after we knew that I was the person who we thought was going to make the most sense for the ED role, I still took the time to interview cooperatively with the members of the board that we were considering. And it was still always a two-way consideration of, are you the right fit here? Am I the right fit for you? We really worked to build a collaborative group that all were bought in about not just being, just being a name, but really being involved, being a part of regular meetings, being engaged in constant discussions, because we also put together, I think, a very diverse group of people who bring skills from around the industry. We have Lauren, who comes from the world of PR and who comes from like brand and CAA agency side stuff and working to represent talent in that way. We have Brian Fairchild, who comes from is a lawyer who works player side for many years and has worked across games and helping drive player contracts. Steven, obviously, Snoop like was a big driver of early player efforts in the early LCS days, and is now runs his own business. All of our folks really come from different areas. Jason comes from wellness and runs Rise Above the Disorder, right? Working on mental health and considerations like that. And we have this amazing glue guy and Brian, who worked both at Riot and at Blizzard. So he has some developer side relationships and knowledge, but he also, he was in recruiting and worked on team building and really helped us to flow through this process in a way that brought everybody together. And also
CLG,
is the guy in CLG too. Yeah, he worked team operations as well. They've got very good resumes, as I think a short way of putting it. I'm selling them all short right now, but he's a good glue guy who's really brought it all together, and is one of the people who at the meeting, you're not really sure his exact specialty all the time in the conversation, but he always has two really good ideas that you're like, I couldn't live without you in this call. So the fact that they're all there, they're all participating and active, is the thing that we were really seeking towards. I'm full time, I'm committing my whole career towards this, and these people are all putting significant efforts on both the exec committee and board side to really contribute to getting work done on a daily basis.
So one thing I would be remiss if I did not point out, which is that you plus the board, the majority of those folks were all part of the Esports Certification Institute, either board or, in Ryan's case, I think he said publicly that he represented them on the legal side. So given that was another industry initiative that caught a lot of flack about a month ago, should fans be concerned at all that a lot of the faces from that, which was very controversial, had to shut down within the first day or so, now are being attached to the LCS Players Association?
Yeah, I think first off, that project is launched was clearly a mistake, and it got shut down. It was recognized as a mistake pretty quickly by the people who obviously put a lot of work into it. They shut it down, refunded everything, and it's good and rightfully gone. And I think we all take some ownership of the fact that we had our names associated with it. We all have spoken out in some way or signed on to some statement in some form saying we feel like we didn't do the right thing with being a part of it, and we understand why it's gone, and need to be cognizant of trying to move forward in the best way possible. But at the same time, we just went through, we have an incredible group of people whose careers I think stand on their own, and I think I would just always ask anyone, that's a fair knock against any of us. Keep it in mind, but judge us on the work that we do and how we perform in this position. I'm really passionate about coming in and doing this work. It's my full-time job, and these folks are committing already considerable hours to doing the best thing they can for players, and we're going to keep trying to do the best we can, and we'll always be listening and learning anytime there's something that we could be doing better.
All right, so then diving in on the issues about the Players Association and sort of how it runs now, a lot of people for many years now have been basically saying the Players Association is a joke, right? So I see all over Reddit, it's, what the general consensus tends to be. I talked to Darshan about this, even I think with a couple times within the past year, in content. He was understanding that was the case and wanted to do better. So what steps are you and the board and the player leadership taking to change that perception of the Players Association?
Yeah, I think we're really grounded in where the PA is at today. We're looking at this as a full reboot of the Players Association. There's a lot of things changing from a fundamental standpoint. I was hired by the players. I wasn't a suggestion by Riot or kind of guided in that way at all. It was their process, and they hired out the entire board and myself, and we're treating it as basically a ground zero. There's some real successes that the PA had in the past, whether it be things like, I think especially probably getting together the database of all player contracts. That had a huge impact on players. That was positive, that we can build on and be looking to some of those things for future guidance. But my number one priority is to just organize players at a base level. There were a lot of things when I came in those early conversations with Darshan and with other people about what didn't work in the PA before, where did things fall down, and why did they fall down. And I wanted to understand, if I was going to jump into this role, am I actually suited as a person with my career to have made an impact if I had been there at that time? Could I have changed how the outcomes had been? Could I have improved things, right? And I think a lot of that stems back to the resume to play vote from a year ago. That's where I've kind of drawn a lot of information and learning from, where you had the situation during COVID, an unprecedented pandemic. It's a hot button issue and a quick moving thing, right? You have to be responsive. And what ended up happening was, there were incentives very clear on the business side, just as there were in all sports and esports, to get back to play, right? And to find a way to resume play, to get sponsor dollars moving, to get broadcast and and eyeballs on the product again, the things that pay our players paychecks and all of that, right? And they ended up announcing that they were resuming to play after some conversations, and then it comes out a day later that there was a vote by the players, and the players had voted not to play or decided not to resume to
Yeah,
play.
they wanted to cancel
obviously
spring split, I think, was the way people understood it. Yes.
That was how people understood it. And I think that set of circumstances in itself was a huge disservice and a huge example of where we're going to be changing things, and already have started enacting changes at a very fundamental and probably like kind of wonkish and boring place to do the work right, which is to say that if we were to relive that situation, we should have had more regular touch points with Riot as the PA to begin with, to be in the conversations when the resume to play was going on, right? We should have been actively flagging for them issues that our players had, and we should have been actively talking to our players prior to any vote well ahead of time about, hey, this is what's probably coming down the pipe. This is kind of these are the things you need to understand. To do that successfully, you have to have a person in each team that can reliably get the attention of the players on the team. You have to go in person to talk to players. I mean, obviously COVID makes in person hard, but you have to have people you can rely on to get players into a call, to talk to them at a person by person level about, these are your things to weigh. I understand that your family is in another country and is under an immense amount of strain and concern about this pandemic. If you want to go home, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Let's talk about that with Riot and figure out, in the same way that the NFL or the NBA did, how can we find a good solution for everyone? So we don't need to get to a yes or no vote. We can get to something that says, look, if you this is going to resume to play, because for a lot of players, it's their livelihood and they want to continue to play. But also, if it makes sense for you to go home, you should be able to have an opt-out situation, right? You should be able to go home, not have your contract affected. You won't get paid while you go home, like was in the NFL or NBA potentially, but a reasonable situation where you can expect to come back and still have your space when things return to some level of normalcy. And that's what you saw in traditional sports. And I think that's just a matter of conversation and collaboration. Everybody has we have different incentives, but we have relatively aligned incentives. We all want the league to be successful. We all want people to be able to be balanced and feel safe and secure in their work and their livelihoods. And if we had better communication, where the PA was better able to communicate with all of its members, and there was more line of dialogue with Riot, I think we could have found that good medium ground where we would have gotten to a place where everybody felt good about the solution that was moving forward. I think that's the core of the work that we have ahead of us.
Well, and so this kind of brings me to my next question, kind of as a follow-up to that. In that situation, you said you need to have all these player reps that can get the attention of the other players on their teams, all this stuff. One of the prevailing issues has been that these players just don't take it seriously. They don't. They make jokes about it. I mean, there's numerous interviews on my channel where players are busting out laughing. Not all those players are competing anymore, right? But how are you going to be able to, even before you get to the point where the fans are taking this seriously, get the players to take it seriously? Or are you already at that point now?
No, I think we have a lot of work to do with our players, and I think that there's some differentiations and things that get talked about with regard to players and whether they take it seriously, whether they care, things like that. Which I think I generally reject the idea that a player doesn't care about their livelihood or about the impact that a PA can have on their livelihood. I think that we as the PA have a real responsibility, in the same way that anybody organizing in labor has a responsibility to help meet people where they're at. These people have busy lives. They work oftentimes 6+ days a week just on their regular job. Plus they're expected to train for hours and hours a day, and they have personal lives. They have responsibilities. Many of them are doing, side gigs or content or other things. They're building streaming, right? These are very, very busy professionals like you or I, and people have different capacity to be able to engage with the minutia of league operations and their long-term future. A lot of folks just can't see past this week, right? It's a reality of life, and we have to, and I have to specifically, find those people and meet them where they're at, so that we can reach them and help them be their best advocates in the capacity that they're capable of. There shouldn't be an expectation that every player or every person has the same energy to go out and produce the same amount of vocal support for the PA or participate in meetings or other things like that. It's the same reason why, what 0.001% of people phone bank for political causes, right? It doesn't mean that you didn't care about the person you voted for, but it means you maybe didn't have the same capacity or someone else had more, and that's okay. So I think that's always like a compassionate place I try to come from with players. They do care. They want their future to be bright and to have the best opportunity possible. And we have to find the avenues to communicate well to them. And I think that's something I bring uniquely to the table in this space, in that I've spent years working with players. I've spent years motivating players, helping them, understand the challenges of making sacrifices in the short term for the long term, and doing all sorts of things of that nature that I think makes me understand how to begin meeting those players, how to find them, how to be understanding if maybe players don't like emails, and maybe a poll is not a good way to ask anything of a player, right? Maybe I need to do the work. Maybe I need to expect to have a personal conversation with everyone just about, or to show up to the facility because I know they're not going to respond to DMs quickly, right? Those are things that we have to be mindful of. And part of that starts in our first real goal, aside from building this first leadership group, is to find the right rep on each team, somebody who can just fulfill 3 simple jobs. Be active in the Discord, so when I message them, they are able to receive the information we send them and transmit it to other players on the team. And in the reverse, be able to hear when players have issues and then send those issues to us. That's the simple and I think really attainable goal that can find someone on each team who can do that for us. My dog is barking.
Yeah, I was going to say,
he's very excited.
I feel like that's the first thing that you need to handle is the dog barking. No. Okay, so it's just you're going to have like these hard outlines for what you want these player reps to be able to do, and in terms of how they're going to be able to disseminate the information. Do you have, obviously I know that a lot of the work that you're doing right now is building the structure of the PA in terms of like finding these reps, all that stuff. Are there goals right now that you're going to be trying to go for? I mean, I don't know if there's something where you're like, hey, my first step is figuring out, we just, as we're talking, Bjergsen and Hunter from Golden Guardians TSM respectively, both got into some sort of Twitter argument about the sort of solo queue in-house system that they've built. So, I don't know if that's a thing that you guys are trying to fix. I'm kind of curious, like, what are the things fans should expect the PA to be working on the onset?
Yeah, I would say as we look at us here at day one, which I think we all within the leadership here view this as very much day one, or I guess day 31 maybe. We kind of started a month ago and waited until MSI was over to make sure we had some time to talk to people behind the scenes and prepare everything in a timely manner. But we'll call it day one for simplicity's sake and to give myself even more of a head start. But I think the basic idea is we need to get the organizing done first, both if we set big goals but I don't have players who are bought in and can execute and support those goals and who want those goals, and I don't have access to Riot in the places I need to, or communication channels with teams in the way that I need to be able to build consensus around them, then we're just a paper tiger. And that's been, I think, a critique of this organization in the past. So we're going to do the hard, less glamorous work first to get things set up and be able to be successful. And then I think I talked to someone else, like, judge us on, you can judge us as we move forward on how well we're able to actually address the problems that arise. And a part of this will probably be, as I said, like being a referee at times, where the best referee is one that isn't seen all the time. And I don't want to be in a large public fight every week about an issue. I want to be working collaboratively to solve problems and get good consensus the majority of the time. We're going to have public disputes, of course. It'll happen. No one's 100% in labor in the world about handling everything amicably, but I think we can be respectful, and I think we can have lines of communication to understand when we disagree, why we disagree, and have genuine debates if necessary, but not ones that are necessarily contentious. So I think that's the core. I don't want to dodge your question though. You asked me what goals do we have, and I want to give you some sense of at least those buckets, because there is a truth of the fact that we are still building the infrastructure. I don't want to commit to the specific line items that we're driving for, particularly because I haven't talked to enough players yet to feel that I should be speaking on their behalf around this specific issue. I can say in a bucket, we all know it's not any mystery that there's a displeasure around the training environment, whether it be solo queue, in-house leagues, ping, or anything in those buckets. There's an issue about the the quality of training that occurs outside of scrims in North America, and how do we solution for that? That's going to be something that the PA needs to have its hands in whatever the solution is. There are elements that are Riot driven, but there are also elements, especially around in-house leagues that you talked about with Hunter, starting a conversation on Twitter over the last few days about, that are right where teams and players can really come together and build solutions ourselves that can be transformational. And you've seen in other games where in-house leagues have been really good for building the competitive environment. So I think that's a bucket, right? I think a second bucket is certainly going to be player rights and contract opportunity, especially around amateur and other things like that. As this space grows, as we, when this organization was founded, there was no real amateur space at that level because you had LCS and Academy, and really that space had kind of receded because of it. And now you have this burgeoning space where you have a lot of new team ownership outside of the 10 LCS teams and also LCS teams in there. It's a very interesting group. And we have to figure out how do we expand our mandate to support these people, because these are the folks who, if they don't get a good first step, they may not get a step at all, or they may come in in a way that, cripples the opportunity for themselves in their future or that of other people around them. So I think that's going to be a big bucket for us. It's hard to say exactly what the solutions look like around it, but I think those are two places where we view us as having a big opportunity. And an amateur, we're already working with Riot on programs, and we're already, even as Hunter talks today or yesterday in the case of this pre-record about leagues, I'm talking with Hunter tomorrow about these exact things, and I've been talking with Matt, who runs amateur at Riot. So we're already starting those conversations, and I feel really good about the amount of dialogue we're able to be driving and already heading towards, like, how do we get to solutions and not just talk.
So just to sum it up, it sounds like you're looking at, one, how do we fix training environments, or at least improve it to make it so that players can get better training outside of scrims, and two, how do you ensure that the amateur scene that is kind of just like being brought back to life or resuscitated is in a good place for the players that are competing in it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be a lot of elements of that. I think some of the amateur stuff, especially we talk about like solo fide or situations like that, if we were doing our job well, those situations will get nipped in the bud before it becomes a huge like public debate. Because I want any player in amateur to get to a place where, you say people laugh about the LCSPA. I want people to get to a place where they feel like if they were supposed to get paid on the 15th and there's nothing in their bank account on the 16th, they text Phil. They message Phil on Discord, right? And they start the conversation to us so that we can flag those things, use the channels that we've now built within Riot and among teams to ensure that we're getting fast responses and able to be a first line defender for people. So I think some of that stuff is never going to see the light of day to the public, but it'll show in the fact that our players will be rallying around us in a way that says they're proud of the thing that works for them and that they know that it's actually their driving. So, it's going to be some things I think will be pretty obvious. And I think we want to be held accountable when something comes to the light as a public issue, for where we stand on it and how we want a solution forward and be able to respond quickly. That'll also be an element of us having built that organizing, because it won't take us 2 weeks to get opinions of players. We'll be able to get the turnaround in a day or 2 days, right? And be able to quickly come out with a fast action response that we feel confident in. So some of those things will be, I think, more subtle, and I think that's fine. That's that work. I don't feel or want to feel like I need to put 2 stakes in the ground of, we're going to achieve these impossible tasks just to try and build hype. I'm happy to be the boring executive director who gets things done and helps people have a better life and a better opportunity, if that's the best work to be done.
Yeah.
If the best work to be done is to take the fight where it needs to be taken in a public forum or something, we can go there too. But I want to collaborate until the last dying breath.
No, you're not going to be starting Twitter fights with people, Phil?
Oh, well, it's pretty hard in this space not to end up in a Twitter fight eventually, but it's my strong preference to end up in cordial conversation about the great future of the LCS we can build together.
Well, we're coming up on half an hour of discussion, and I know we just talked about a ton of different stuff as you were kind of downloading all the information to us from what the new Players Association looks like. I know tons more questions that people probably have. Perhaps as things are developing more with you, we can get you on Hotline League or something, and you can answer calls from fans and we can figure stuff out that way. But is there anything that you would like to say to any of the fans out there at the end of this about what they should expect for Players Association or your involvement or anything else at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, and it's in our kind of drive mission, our open letter, transparency with fans is something that's really important to us. And I think transparency goes hand in hand with a sense of accountability, which is that we want to be able to be constantly accountable for the work that we're doing and for the issues that affect our players as time goes forward. We want the community to come to us, continuing to ask for us to guide them about what will help make the LCS the best space it can be, what are the issues, and demystify some of them for them. And if we fall short, I want to be able to be held accountable by you, by other folks at any time to understand where we can do better. Like we welcome that, and we welcome the challenge of trying to bring more information to the public, because we genuinely feel that the players and the fans are the people who are most closely aligned on the sense of where we want for the LCS. These, we want the best players experience the best games. I think all the players in the space care about those things, but I think fans and players have this natural alignment around about the well-being of the league that they love so much and they make possible with their support. So that that to me is the thing I will always stand by. Ask us, we will be here. I'm
sure people can find you on Twitter and ask you, take things up with you. Either way, thank you so much, Phil, for the interview. Congratulations on the new job. I'm sure there's much more to talk about in the future as things start rolling out. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Hello, if you're watching this outro and you're wondering why I'm fixing my hair, it's because I want to look good for June 1st. That's when Alienware is doing their Alienware update on Twitch. You can check it out. You go check out their socials. You'll see all this information. But they're showing you some wonderful new updates, some new information on what's going on over at Alienware, and you don't want to miss it. June 1st, twitch.tv/Alienware. Be there or be square. Is that a thing people still say?